Hello students and welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Pooja Walia Maan from SGI Samalkha. Today we are going to talk on the module Employee and Customer Role in Service Delivery from the paper Services Marketing. Let us see what we are going to learn in this module. We shall look at the role of employees in service delivery, employees as contributors to quality, satisfaction, and value, role of customers in service delivery, various levels of customer participation in service delivery, customers' role in service experiences, and customers as contributors to quality, satisfaction, and value. Employees of any service organization are the only face between the marketeer and the customer till the time the service delivery is completed. It is the employees who facilitate the interface between the organization and the market. Service organizations spend huge amounts in creating a brand by consistently striving to create and sustain a strategic advantage in the highly competitive market. But eventually, it is the delivery of satisfaction from the employee to the customer that builds or kills the service brands. In addition, the customers are also increasingly taking a center stage in the creation and delivery of services to define the performance standards. Thus, it is significant to understand the role played by the employees as well as the customers in the service delivery. Service delivery can be thought of as the interface between service processes, service employees, and the customers. So, what is the role of employees in service delivery? Front end executives are considered as the most important asset for any service organization and hence the most capable in achieving and sustaining the competitive advantage. It rests upon the service delivery employees to ensure that the interaction between them and the customer is consistent with the desired positioning of the service encounter as conceived by the top management to make the building of the competitive edge exercise successful. For any organization to survive in the increasingly competitive market, building brands has become an important strategic tool. We move ahead to the next subtopic, role of employees in building the service brands. According to Evan, a brand represents the sum total of consumers' perceptions and feelings about the features and performance of the product or a service. The process of branding places the customers at the central focus of all marketing decisions. This is done so that the brand is perceived to be consumer friendly, thereby leading to a top of the mind recall resulting in financial gains for the organization. Now, students, let us look at the role of employees in building service brands. Service employees act as the face of the service provider in presenting a service, reinforcing a brand image, and ensuring customer satisfaction by coming up to the expectations of the customers at each service encounter. The interaction of the frontline employees with the customers will have the lasting impression regarding the reputation of the service organization and the perception of the quality of services provided, building a brand. Role of employees in influencing service quality is yet another factor. A knowledgeable and a well-trained HR would also be instrumental in influencing the service quality. In service industry, it is extremely important to understand the needs and wants of the customers to be able to service them with the suitable offering. There are 5 dimensions of service quality which we have been discussing at various other modules: reliability, responsiveness, empathy, assurance, and tangibles. It is the duty of service HR to understand these dimensions and deliver the same during the service encounter by carefully understanding the needs and wants of the consumers. The quality of service delivery by the HR will have a direct impact on the overall service delivery and quality perception of the organization. If the service staff is not trained or is not in sufficient numbers to handle the customers, it is likely that the service delivery would be not up to the desired level of consumer satisfaction. Let us now take an example of a restaurant yet again. A consumer would generally come to the restaurant to be served courteously the desired meals. If the service staff is not trained to be customer centric in his approach, or is not trained to be sensitive to the needs and expectations of the customers, he may end up dissatisfying the customers despite the fact that the food quality may be good. The overall service level of the customer lowers if the service staff is not encouraged to be customer conscious or service minded. Having discussed about the role of employees in service delivery and service brand building, let us now move on to discuss the role played by consumers in service delivery. Predominantly, it is believed that the success of a service encounter, thereby resulting in the success of the service organization, solely depends upon the service employees. There are several research studies also conducted that reflect that the success of any service delivery depends upon the processes involved in delivering the service. Also, the service HR and the related tangibles to be served along with the service to the employees. However, there is another important actor in measuring the success or otherwise of the service, and that is the consumer. In many services, it is observed that the consumers play a vital role in creating the desired level of service outcome, eventually enhancing or sacrificing their level of satisfaction or the value for money perceived to have been received. It is ultimately the consumer who decides the fate of a brand. a brand perceived as successful by the consumer has the power to charge a premium over its competitors, even in the situation of cutthroat competition. This is true not only for the end consumers in various healthcare or educational services, but also for the business consumers buying legal or various maintenance services. In these buying situations, the customers are an active and integral part of the service creation and service delivery so that they are satisfied with the service. For instance, an HR manager of a telecom organization wants to hire the services of a training organization to impart required skills to its marketing staff. He would be deeply involved in the process of identifying the need for the training program, discussing the content and the skills to be imparted, methods of delivery of training, identification and necessary arrangements of participants, deciding the time, duration, venue, stationery, audio-visual aids required for the training session, observing the progress of the training, and finally, the evaluation of the effectiveness of the program. The HR manager has to be constantly involved in the entire training program along with the outsourced trainers. Thus, in such case, the success of the training program is directly related to two parties representing the customers, that is, the HR managers and the training participants. The success of the training module is dependent upon the needs shared by the HR manager and the participation and learning of the participants. Let us discuss two very important frameworks of customer participation in the service delivery. We are referring to the levels of consumer participation. Consumers are directly or indirectly involved in the service buying situations. The level of involvement can vary across services. In the subsequent slides, we shall broadly categorize the customer's involvement. Now, students, let us try and understand the levels of consumer participation in services. Consumers are directly or indirectly involved in the service buying situations. The level of involvement can vary across services. We shall broadly categorize the customer's involvements in three different levels. The first is the low involvement. There are cases in which the consumer is merely present physically in a situation and thus have a very low level of participation. For example, in availing a banking service at any of the commercial banks, the consumer is only present in a buying situation, but is not much involved in the entire service process. In a buying situation related to arranging for the regular maintenance services of office equipments, the business customer's involvement is very less and very little is required from the organization. The service seller takes complete charge of the situation and may only occasionally seek some information for understanding the condition of these equipments. The second level of consumer involvement can be called as moderate customer involvement. In this buying situation, the customer inputs are needed during the process of service delivery. For instance, while getting a haircut, the service receiver needs to provide the necessary inputs on the kind of haircut he desires. Similarly, for a business customer interested in getting an advertisement campaign developed by an advertising agency, the desired positioning and description of the brand are necessary inputs to be given for the agency to choose the desired storyline. While ordering food at a full service restaurant, the service delivery staff would seek as much information as possible to deliver the desired taste and also the quantity of the food. Thus, the customer is moderately involved in the process of service delivery by sharing information and giving necessary guidelines to complete a service task. The third is a situation of high customer involvement. This is a situation of active client participation in the process of service delivery. The service cannot be generated or delivered without the involvement of the customer. Let us take an example of a person interested in losing some body weight, and he or she hires a personal gym trainer. The gym instructor will not be able to deliver his or her services unless the client is involved in the services at every step. Similarly, in a business situation, if an HR training firm is hired to conduct a skill enhancement program, it is mandatory for the target employees to be an active participant of the training session for it to be conducted. Thus, any buying situation in which the service cannot be delivered without the customer being an active participant is the high customer involvement situation. In this table, we see the various levels of customer involvement. We have 6 bases of differences in 3 levels of customer participation, that is low, moderate and high involvement. The first basis of difference is the customer contribution. In the low involvement, the customer's presence is required. In the moderate involvement, his inputs are required. Whereas in high involvement, it is the services which is co-created with the consumer. The second basis refers to the service creation. The processes are standardized in low involvement. In moderate involvement, the client's inputs customize the standard services. Whereas in high involvement, the consumers are actively involved in guiding how the service has to be created. The third basis of difference is the inputs required. For a low involvement situation, the payment may be the only input of the customer, whereas information and support resources may be the inputs for the moderate involvement. as far as the high involvement is concerned, the customer's regular inputs are mandatory. The fourth basis refers to the availability of service. In low involvement, the service is available regardless of the consumer purchase. Whereas in moderate involvement, the services are created only when the consumer demands. However, for the high involvement, the services cannot be created without the active participation of the clients. Another basis of difference between these three levels of consumer participation is the example of end consumer. In the low involvements, we take an example of getting a demand draft made in a bank. However, for moderate involvement, consider getting a haircut. And lastly, for high involvement, imagine a situation of a career counseling. I think with these examples, which are meant for the end customers, the level of customer participation will be now clear. Having discussed the various levels of customer participation, we move ahead to discuss the various roles of customers in service delivery. In the service buying situation, the customer can play various roles depending upon the level of involvement desired from him. There can broadly be three roles observed in a service buying, but the roles may not be mutually exclusive. This means that in a given service transaction, there is a possibility of each of the role to be in active play. The first is the consumer's role as a productive resource. This view of the role of customers in service assumes that the service recipients are a part of the service organization and they behave and contribute the way employees do. This behavior affects the level of service quality. For example, if a patient is able to provide the complete and accurate health details to the physician, it is very likely for the doctor to diagnose the illness correctly and hence provide required medication. Similarly, in a business buying situation, hiring an HR recruitment agency would yield the pool of most suitable candidates only if the job description and job specification is correctly developed and explained to the recruiting agency. In both these examples, the customer provides the background information of the task at hand directly and completely to the service provider to increase the likelihood of quality results. However, there are service encounters where the providers may not prefer an active role of the customer and thus seek opportunities to restrict the customer interface as far as possible, which is also convenient to the customer. Such a restriction can actually reduce cost and increase efficiencies. Examples of such situations are the withdrawal of cash through ATM, deposition of checks by putting it in a box instead of personally handing it over to the bank staff. The second is the customer's role as a contributor to quality. Customers can also contribute to quality, satisfaction, and value in the service delivery. Often, a customer may not be actively interested to increase the productivity of the services of the seller, but they are very much concerned about satisfaction of their own needs, which in process may be a learning for the service organization. This situation can be best described by taking the examples of the medical, educational, or legal services. A customer may not be bothered about the overall physical evidence of the hospital or dispensary if he is getting relieved of his illness. However, in the process of satisfying his own needs of hygiene, he may contribute in the improvement of the overall cleanliness of the hospital. Similarly, the client may not be much concerned about the winning or losing of a lawyer, but is only concerned that the lawyer should be able to win the case for him, and therefore would contribute to his best in providing assistance of any type to the lawyer. Many a times, such an involvement may lead to a new learning for the lawyer, thereby facilitating him in some future situation. This is the role played by the customer as a contributor in value and satisfaction of the service purchased. The same is true for a business customer hiring a management consultancy firm. The organization can be benefited by contributing to the development of the improvement plan by sharing information about anticipated hurdles in implementation. This practical awareness may be useful for the consultancy firm in many future assignments. In addition to this, many customers may also enjoy the process of their participation in the service delivery. Thus, the service buyer not only fulfill their own needs, but also provide some valuable learnings to the service provider, thereby contributing in enhancing service quality and value. Last is the customer's role as a competitor to the service seller. A final role played by the customers may be that of a potential competitor. In many service buying situations, the customer may be able to produce a service on his own, either completely or in parts, instead of purchasing it from the market. The decision whether the service be produced by the customer or it should be purchased is crucial for the service seller. An example of such a situation could be for a consumer to go to a retail outlet to purchase the groceries or get them delivered at home by ordering at any online retail grocer. A business consumer can develop a training workshop for the sales executives using its internal resources instead of hiring an external management development firm to do the same. There could be several factors affecting the choice of service procurement, with cost and control as important variables to develop the services internally, and convenience and expertise as the determinants favoring external purchase of services. In the just discussed situation, the customer may become a potential threat to the service seller by opting to do the given task himself. Thus, a customer may play the role of a competitor in these situations. So, students, now let us summarize what we have learned in this module. The employee's understanding of the customer's needs and wants, and the offering of the appropriate solution to the customer by making him appreciate its importance to satisfy his needs is significant to decide the level of satisfaction of the customers. Customers can also contribute in the service delivery satisfaction by being a participant and co-creator of the services. Service marketing is the marketing of intangible package of benefits offered to the customers for the satisfaction of their needs and wants. In the process of service delivery, the service staff as well as the customers play an important role. Employees are the face of the service organization. They are trained to be empathetic to the needs and wants of the customers and offer them a service to meet the customer's expectations. Consistently meeting and exceeding the needs of the customers contribute in the development of the brand of the service organization. Customers, on the other hand, are an active participant as well as a co-creator of the services and thus contribute in defining the service quality. The level of customer involvement in service delivery may range from low to high, depending upon the type of service, which also defines the role that a customer may play in service delivery. Thank you.